Good evening. Welcome to Yin and Yang, episode 2. Last week was a big stretch. Now we got it this time. We got everything this time. My partner right here, TJ Sampson. We have it, which basically we're partners in the different boat. We also have a movie, The Awakening, coming on out. We're working on each and every time. And she's got tell us, you've got yourself a script that's finished, don't you?
I do indeed. I actually have 2 scripts finished. I have a short film.
Right.
It's a short film noir thriller. Yeah. Sort of a murder mystery. Not really a murder mystery, but it's a suspense mystery called The Crystal Locket, which I wrote in exactly one day. Which I don't know. It just I had this.
Copy me.
Huh?
Trying to copy me.
Well, have you completed a script in one day?
2 days, but yeah, I get you. Good point. Yeah.
I just had this burst of creative inspiration and sat down and wrote it, and I love it. I think it's good. I think it's very valid. I think it good dialogue, good story, and we're going to work on getting that into production real soon. Also, the finished screenplay for The Awakening, I just finished that last week. Also looking into entering into the Atlanta Film Festival screenplay competition.
Okay.
Deadline is at the end of this month.
All right.
And
we're all staying busy. We're all staying busy with these, with our stuff right now,
Absolutely.
And there will be and you will be doing a little bit of basically a tour for the house for Awakening.
Yes, we found a beautiful old house that does events. It was built in 1826 and it's up in Duluth. It is called the Wynn Russell House. And there actually has been some filming done there, from what I understand. And what's so ironic about it is the house really is haunted, from what they tell me. And
let's just hope the haunting doesn't affect the movie.
Well, if the ghost decides to
go,
I'll just give her credit. I'll give her credit. It's like, hey, no special effects needed, right? We got the ghost right here. Come on, honey. Let's go. Can you go action? Open the door.
If a ghost decides to go method acting, we'll know.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we've had right now, we've had some interesting news in the last few weeks, in the last couple of weeks, haven't we?
Well, it always seems to be interesting, but yeah, definitely some stuff worth commenting on for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like especially right now. We say the controversy of the Little Mermaid. So anybody that's under a rock right now, and see, our audience won't be under the rock. They're going to know because they've been debating this the whole time. They're talking about by itself. They don't like it's like they don't like a black girl playing the Ariel.
Well, quite frankly, for a character that was made up to begin with, okay, and whether or not whoever originally wrote it, and I can't recall, was it Hans Christian Andersen?
I believe so, yes.
I believe so. Who wrote it, unless he particularly described her as having a certain look, which I've never read the original story. I don't know. But
yeah, but like for instance, was Ariel even a redhead originally, like from Hans Christian Andersen book,
She's half fish.
Yeah.
She is half fish.
Yeah.
And her best friend is a talking crab.
Yeah.
What difference does it make the ethnicity of the actor that is cast as her?
Yeah. See, that's
and of course, this girl can sing. Obviously, I think one of her, and the craziest thing, I looked at her name. Her name is Halle Bailey. Okay, and my mind was thinking Halle Berry, and I looked at her and I thought she's a little bit young to be Halle Berry, isn't she? But then I thought, oh, and she's a singer. Well, maybe that had something to do with it. And I say that's a valid reason for casting somebody. Even though it may not be what we imagine it having, because there's so much of a story like that that's been around for so many years and so many generations.
Well, we've had so many different ways. I mean, you had what was this? Let's see, Kojak, Mr. Theo Kojak himself, you know what I mean? Telly Savalas. We had Telly Savalas playing an Egyptian. You have the painted white person of Jesus Christ, which is, which came from the Middle East.
You had Yul Brynner playing a Taiwanese.
Yeah.
Siamese king,
Right.
which I think Siam is now, I don't know what it is now. Thailand, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, but it's
Whatever. It was Siam,
yeah,
and he was Asian. Duh, clearly.
yeah,
And
and
it's
it's
like, dude, that's a white man.
well, Mickey Rooney played an Asian in a terrible role, and I'm not doing it in the pandering sense. He was awful in it. Mickey Rooney. So it's like you get, and then you had Charlton Heston played a Mexican cop, and in one of Orson Welles' movies.
The Little Mermaid is a kid's story. Okay. And I'm going to read to you some interesting comments on an article that was published in Forbes.
Okay, go ahead.
Forbes.com.
Yeah.
Here's somebody, I don't know who this person is, but they were commenting on the backlash of the casting.
Yeah.
And some user on Twitter named Gnome says, the original Little Mermaid is a queer man's self-insertion character longing to be able to be in a relationship with another man, and at the end the mermaid dies. You don't care about the original, mate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. There's one. Here's Linda Carter. Bless her. People are mad Little Mermaid is black. The lady who was also a fish, who lives under the sea, and whose best friend is a talking crab.
Yeah. Yeah, and no, something. The biggest thing about it is the fact this is a should not care. This should not be a controversy, because remember this part. This was a fictional story.
Yeah.
This is a fictional story. No historical deal whatsoever. Even for instance, we can talk about right now. They have a new A League of Their Own on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that were mad at some of the ladies being lesbians and some of them being black, but that's historically correct.
Well, okay, but when you have historical accuracy, you do not have anything to complain about.
Yeah, it's like at that point, because they just love the 1992 version. But
of course, most of us did. You had Madonna, you had Rosie O'Donnell, you had oh gosh, what was her name? Lori Petty, and you had, what was it, Tom Hanks?
Yep.
Yeah, who wouldn't love them?
Sure, and it's like, see, you had those, so you get historical accuracy. The ones that here's the thing: the arguments that people have are when you do something that is not historically accurate just because, or something that does not fit, which would be an ads. That might be, they might have. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like I love the airplanes above me, but no, it's like
not much longer, baby.
Exactly. It's like it's like when you have it, either historical inaccuracies, or you have something that doesn't make sense just to be able to have, that you need some kind of culture, a different culture, but you do it inaccurate. They'll do something like that. Then you have an argument. But I've seen ads, for instance, where you have a whole white family and all of a sudden you kind of insert an Asian kid. I've seen that before. And it's like, unless you're doing an adoption ad, that doesn't fit and it looks stupid.
Right.
But go ahead.
I tell you, when it comes to historical accuracy, now again, we only go back so far with actual documented photography or things like that, because prior to photography, artists and painters could represent a person any old way they wanted. Okay. Yeah. Now you got to understand, Marie Laveau, who was New Orleans, but she was of Haitian descent.
Yeah.
She was Creole. And in her day, her ethnicity was such a hodgepodge. I mean, she was a stew of different ethnicities. She was white, Indian, black, Spanish. She had her skin was sort of medium light, and she had the curlier dark hair as represented in paintings of her that we've seen.
Yeah.
If she walked in here right now, is that what she's going to look like? We don't know.
Sure.
Okay, we don't know, and history is often glossed over and editorialized. So unless someone is specifically described by another or at least by a group of others,
Mm-hmm.
as being one thing or another, you can't always make assumptions.
Yeah. And one of the things about it is that I brought up the Jesus thing. That wasn't bad. That's absolutely not meant to be a controversy. But I just brought that up because that was a storyline in 1974 with Good Times. It was Michael, the little guy, because the mom, Florida, wanted the Jesus Christ that we all know and love. What up there? They wanted to bring up Black Jesus that was painted, which really, and here's the thing: we don't know what Jesus Christ looked like.
No,
Whatsoever. You don't. There's been light-skinned Middle Easterners, so it could easily be close to something like that, or they could be
you
darker.
also have to consider Mary. What did his mother look like?
Right. Right.
I mean, he would probably resemble her, at least in some ways.
Sure, because a lot of sons represent their moms. So yes, so there are things like that that you think about. As I said, I mean, it could be close like that. I'm just saying that could be that light skinned. It could be a little bit of olive light, or it could be darker.
You know, the global majority, and I'll just say this, in terms of the entire planet, the global majority is medium to dark skin, dark hair, and dark eyes.
Yeah.
Fairer skinned with dark hair and dark eyes is a little bit less of a majority, a little bit less so. Fairer skin with lighter hair and lighter eyes, even less so.
Well, yeah.
You're talking about certain regions of the world, Asia, most of Africa, a lot of Australia.
Yeah.
And when I say Asia, I mean India, China, you know, the whole region, and even into Russia.
We're talking about 3.5 billion, 4 billion.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
So we are.
But depending on who writes the story of something like a fictional character, Little Red Riding Hood, unless the Grimm brothers who wrote Little Red Riding Hood described her as a very pale little white girl with blonde hair.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they did. Who's to say that she wasn't black? Okay. Who says?
Well,
I mean, maybe they don't know. Maybe in their minds they're thinking one thing or another, but
the only thing that would ever, here's the deal. The only thing that would ever get me quote unquote angry or annoyed at changing of a race or a culture is if it's historically incorrect. Because that is what it is to me. It has, if it's historically incorrect, it's like, truthfully, we know why. Like I said, we know why Telly Savalas was playing the Egyptians. We understand from the day of what they did, you know, and everything like those. But we're talking the now. We're talking the now of, you know, where every culture is represented, including they're also trying to get blind, deaf, all of them in, you know, in the movies. So they're all getting represented, unlike the day. So we're saying this: if it's historically inaccurate, I don't want to see it. I don't care which side.
But if it's a cartoon or a fairy tale,
yeah,
who gives a flip?
Yeah, exactly. I don't.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna be mad at that. I'm not.
No, and I certainly won't. I mean,
no.
I don't plan to watch it either way. So,
like I wasn't like I said, like one of the things was this is a fictional characters, but I didn't think whatsoever that Ghostbusters, the Paul Feig's Ghostbusters with the women, I didn't think that was going to go do well, just because you're going almost the same story with a different thing. It's almost felt like they were taking their side, and it bombed. Taking the that
could have been done a lot better. I think they could have done something very similar with women, instead of just basically rewrite the original 1984 script and cast women in the roles. They didn't need that.
Well, you know, like I said, here's the thing. They had Ocean's 8. They had Ocean's 8. You could have made a different movie instead of making that. Could have made it. And here's the thing. You have the Equalizer with Queen Latifah. You have with Queen Latifah, and it is popular. I think it's in its third year. It is popular. So women are getting the action roles now. So you can make action movies without copying movies. without copying old stuff. Make it for women by themselves.
Well, let me ask, what year was that Ghostbusters movie made? 2014?
16.
That later?
Yeah.
I thought it was earlier than that. But I think maybe what I'm getting at is just because of things like that has encouraged more and more stories like the ones you are talking about to be written. Okay? I mean, that one in and of itself maybe wasn't so successful, but maybe it has encouraged others to come to create characters that would work and stories that would work with a female protagonist in an action role.
Like you, for instance. It's not even an action role, but it's you. It's like, remember, it's like about 5% of women are directors now. You're going to be up there with that. And that 5% doesn't sound like much, but it was 0.1% of 1% for so long.
I know. Tell me, I know.
Yeah. So it's moving up. You know what I'm saying? So there's those. No, this should not be a controversy, but it's a controversy because we're in a changed world. I'm just using this as an off-topic thing for a second. I just watched something tonight about, it was about cybersecurity and the things that they're doing with cybersecurity and ransomware. And I'm like, there's not even 5-10 years ago. I mean, even though it was by the 80s, it wasn't even big. Now hospitals have to pay or their patients die because they lose all their computers. We're in a different world, which means Hamilton is Puerto Rican, The Little Mermaid is black, and it's so different, and everybody has a chance.
And you know what? Pardon my French.
Okay.
Here on my show. It's an effing show. Okay? It is designed to make people see the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't reality. Okay? If you want reality, watch the crappy ass reality television shows, which are not really reality anyway, but watch that. Instead of a show that's supposed to at least make you think or see some other possibility in what maybe you already have thought about.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm learning, I'm taking a workshop now, and I'll be brief.
Yeah.
It's a director's workshop with a local theater in town. And one workshop, it's a series of workshops over the course of a year, and one of them had to do with casting.
Yeah.
It had to do with, seriously, as a director, consider your possibilities that are beyond what you are traditionally used to thinking about when it comes to casting, unless something is in that script that specifically describes a character a certain way. Okay? Whether it describes them as a black person or as a white person or as a older man or a younger female. And it just, so in those, with that in mind going in, you have that kind of restriction already placed on you by the playwright.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're very strict about that.
Yep.
Then, like ours, we're working on Waiting for Godot.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, the possibilities there are really endless. I mean, I wouldn't cast children or teenagers in these roles, okay?
Yep.
At least mature.
Estragon could be estrogen, remember? Like you said?
Exactly. And or that sort of personality, you know? And and whether it's male to female or flipped or 2 males, 2 females.
Yeah.
One non-binary, one
one robot, one AI.
Yeah. One robot. But is that robot going to be played by an actor or is it an actual machine?
Right. That's the thing. You know, who knows?
You got to ask yourself that. You got to figure that out. So that's one thing right there.
Yep.
But there's some stuff that's, very, very clearly, what am I looking for?
Well,
now going into our next topic, I think.
Yeah, it's like I was going to segue into this. The segue into this. There are changes in this world. And now the changes that we're talking about segs into this next topic. The idea of women and strength in media, but at the expense of men. But it also is but this is the thing. This is also feels like the revenge of way back when the women always needed the men and the men were in charge.
And believe it or not, that was the case.
Yeah.
Okay. We can look at movies, TV, and even advertising that was common in the 1940s, 50s, and even into the 60s. That we look at today and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
It literally promotes sexual harassment. It promotes abuse of women. It promotes the idea that women are subservient to men. And I'm sitting here going, if you understand these things, and if you've seen enough of it, and especially if you came up in that era, and then, you know, in the 70s and into the 80s, mostly the 70s, you saw a twist. There were these militant radicals, all right? I'll refrain from using the word most people like to use, feminazi.
Yeah.
But they had to be that way. They had to be that way. And we laugh at it today. But because at the time, really, for a woman to stand up for herself, to say, look, don't talk to me like I'm inferior to you. Don't treat me like I'm inferior to you. I've got rights. And when those rights came about and legally came about, that created a whole different, you know, standard, a cultural rule of thumb. But that doesn't mean you have to be weak. Okay?
Right.
You should have been weak to begin with. If you were weak before, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
With the strengthening of women. Okay.
And see, this isn't the Leave It to Beaver time. So, but remember this. Remember this
Barbara
part.
Billingsley hated that role, by the way.
Who did?
Barbara Billingsley.
Oh, of course she hated that role.
She hated that role.
Of course she hated that role. There are a lot of the roles from those days they would hate. You know, it's like she probably wanted to be Betty White. You know, yeah. But no, the thing is, where I'm meaning by this, all of this right here, is the fact that I'm not bashing women being strong now. In fact, I'm probably one of the biggest. I'm probably one of the biggest for women being stronger. But what I'm trying to bring up and I'm trying to promote in this world is strong men plus strong women equals strong kids, badasses. Everything's a badass. Everything can work together. To me, on media, the closest thing that I could see, and it's not too often, is The Rock or Dwayne Johnson. His movies, he's strong, but so is the women. They work together.
And they play fantasy characters. Okay.
But I'm saying,
they play fantasy characters.
Yeah.
You're not going to see The Rock playing a doctor.
Yeah. No, correct. Okay. But he is a reason why, because the biggest reason that he makes women strong, for one big thing, his mom was a single mom, had to take care of everything. He knows that. Then he has a niece that's a wrestler. He has nieces and cousins that are athletes. He knows badass women. He understands the idea of badass women. But the biggest thing about it is, it was a fantasy character. But he is a producer of his movies. He makes women strong. You can do this, but you get ads, you get television, you get any of these, you get those sitcoms all those years. Everybody Loves Raymond is my biggest stick in my craw. Can't stand the way
it's supposed to be funny. It is not supposed to represent, heaven forbid, anything real.
Oh,
at least I hope people realize it's not supposed to represent anything.
It's like every little thing is like Deborah, and then oh my God, I can't take it.
Oh my God!
But that's all over the place, though. I mean, you put it magazine covers. Everything's like man is idiot.
Okay. Consider the ratings. If the ratings sucked,
no, the ratings were amazing at 9 years.
Right.
But it's like. Yeah, and it's like I have to get a reminder that this is a lot of men now.
Well,
huh? That they are. I'm just saying it's a lot of men now. So they are represent what real men have become, which that sticks in my craw. But see, men were like that in the 80s too. But at least they had something, the big powerful men that they could at least look up to. There's nothing to look. There's not too much to look up to. Maybe, and then anytime someone makes, and I apologize for going on with this, but this is the thing. Amazon has a show called The Terminal List, which is incredibly popular. It's with Chris Pratt. It is a powerful Navy SEAL. He was a family man. His family ended up dying. Spoiler alert. He was a powerful family man. The family looked up to him, everything like that. Everybody's afraid to make a strong man now because the reviewers just eat it up. They just tear it apart. If it isn't a strong woman, it does anything, they tear it completely apart.
Well, let me tell you, I don't know who the viewers are you're referring to, but there's so much out there that you can take one show. In your case, your example of The Terminal List.
Yeah.
And you could take that other one, Everybody Loves Raymond, which is a total diametric opposite of that.
Yep.
Find the stuff in between. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that kind of, it kind of comes in here. One's extreme and one's extreme, and there's others that's like right in here. But I have seen a movie recently. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie. It was an indie film made for one of those.
Of course it is.
But let me finish.
Okay.
Young couple-ish, 30-something, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Who came to a house. And it turns out, the house has gotten haunted, it's a past and blah, blah, blah. But the lead female is a doctor.
Right.
She's the breadwinner. The husband they don't even just say what he does for work. But he's not the breadwinner, but he's not represented as exactly a wuss either.
Sure.
This character, in fact, she's having some problems, visions, and she's getting, a little crazy. And one scene where she sort of passes out, and he kind of, and then they start kind of playing around with each other, and then they start kind of flirting, and then again get a little bit smoochy. He leans down, and he swings her up in his arms like this, and she says, "Woo, I love it." And when as a strong man or something like that, and then he swoops. But her statement right there, it was in the script. No. What she said was, "Ooh, I love it when you take charge."
Yeah.
She said exactly that. It was in the script.
Yeah.
It was in the script.
Yeah. And see,
so I'm trying to say that there is out there, and there's writers writing it. I mean, maybe you're not seeing it, but
yeah. And you're right on those. It's like but it's like there's a lot of people will say we don't have shows like Little House on the Prairie anymore. They'll say it on the stupid comments. Yeah, there are. It's called Hallmark Channel. There's a bunch of them. But the biggest thing I always bring up is it's not marketed. They're not marketed to the thing. There's different types of marketing. They're not marketing Family Hour anymore. They're not marketing the Badass anymore. They're not marketing. It's such different marketing. But my true issue with all of it is the fact that it's like there is a lot more where let's make the man the joke. There isn't let's make the man the joke. Let's make that way. I believe it. And my whole point of everything is not to bash the strong woman. No way. It's the fact that why aren't there? Why do we have to see? And I'm going to say this is the truth. Why do I have to see Mark Ruffalo as Hulk? He's the wimpiest Hulk I've ever seen.
No, I don't like that either.
Yeah. Why? He's the wimpiest Hulk there is. And it's like, let's make sensitive Hulk. Hulk is not supposed to be this. Hulk's not supposed to be that, but it's like woke Hulk.
David Banner, Bruce Banner in the comics, but David Banner played in the TV series in the 70s by the late wonderful Bill Bixby. He was a sensitive guy, but he didn't take any shit. Yeah. Okay. He knew how to fight. He didn't take any shit. He tried not to lose his temper. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And one of the things that got him so into what he was doing was that he felt that he didn't lose his temper enough. Okay. He did that experiment with the gamma rays and the the opening it and gets in it. And the reason he felt that he wanted to know what it was that got people so riled is because his wife died in a car accident and he was there.
Lift her up. He could lift her out.
Lift the car up.
Yeah.
He lacked the adrenaline, the strength, the desire, the panic,
Yeah.
Whatever comes into play. That's what he was trying to find out.
Yeah.
Okay. And as he listened to other people's stories of the same exact thing, like a woman lifted a car off her child who was in a burning vehicle and got him out. And he was sitting there going, what is the fucking secret?
Yeah.
He was trying to get himself more tough, I guess is the word.
Sure.
And of course, he overdid it. But then from then on out, he did everything he could to try not to lose his temper.
Oh, he wanted to end the Hulk forever. But
he wanted to erase that whole thing.
Yeah, he wanted. Which I always found funny because I was thinking, as much as this guy gets his ass kicked, as much as he gets bullied, as much as everything, you would think he'd be like, okay, go ahead. Come on.
Well,
like,
he wasn't that. He didn't want to hurt anybody.
I know, but that was just, it's a joke that you make. But
he was a doctor. He was a basic good guy, you know, the virtuous, you know, everything he tried to do to help people. And they always ended up, you know, effing him over. And he just, you know, after a while, you know, the Hulk came into play and just, you know, some of the TV movies they made when the series ended, some of those TV movies that were made in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, before he lamentably passed away, was starting to evolve because not only that, he was directing.
Yeah.
Bixby was.
Yep.
And he was like, let's give this guy something to really get riled about. You know, there was a courtroom scene. Oh, and the lawyer was grilling him, and he was just la 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 la, and he leans down, and all of a sudden he looms up, and his eyes are all white, and you know he's going to kick that lawyer's ass.
And no, it's basic. No, it's the basic storytelling, but that was the whole thing. It's like, it's just the basic joke that I like to make with it. It's like, come on. It's like, you give it to anybody else. It's like, oh, please, I dare you, hit me, please. Come on. You know, but it's the different story. But those are the times that we had back then. We now are in a time where everything is marketed so differently. Now you have She-Hulk, which again, here's the deal. People mad at She-Hulk. I'm not going to watch She-Hulk, but guess what? It was around a long time ago. They're just making a different viewer of it. I'm like, I'm not mad at it because it was there. People were once mad at what was the movie with Chadwick Boseman? Black Panther.
Black Panther.
They were mad at Black Panther that was made like it was something else, and it's like, that's been around since 1966. So there's nothing to be mad at. You're just making excuses. There's some people, and I'm not making this to be political. I'm not making it for anything. I'm just making it what is the truth. They're making it. There are just people that are racist.
Very much so. And you know what? It's a fucking cartoon character. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, and if you really are that adamant, and truly, if you really are that adamant, don't watch it. Just watch the old stuff. Watch the stuff you like, but leave it alone. And the worst way to get what you don't want in these things is to give it the attention that online and Twitter and all that stuff is giving it. Okay. When you're giving it that level of attention, then you're giving them what they want. If you ignore it, it'll go away.
I do want men to get stronger again on the more TV shows. But again, there are producers, and I'm bringing up the Terminal List one more time. I think there are producers that seriously listen to TikTok or reviewers or YouTube or any of those.
That's so fortunate.
Yeah, and they're seriously afraid to make stronger men because it gets ripped apart. They'll call it white privilege. They'll call it, it's patriarchy. They'll call it all that ridiculousness. And
I want to ask you something. Now, we saw something not long ago. You and I did. We sat and watched them. I don't recall if we ever finished the series, which I don't think we did because it was quite an ending. Hannibal.
We did not finish it, no.
I know we didn't finish it. You and I didn't finish it. I finished it. I saw the ending.
Yeah.
But the two men leads.
Keep talking, okay? Keep talking.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
And Hugh Dancy play the forensic psychologist, like a profiler kind of a guy. He could look at a crime scene and figure out the thought processes of the killer. Okay. And of course, as we all know, most of us who know movie history know that Hannibal Lecter was Hannibal the Cannibal, played by Anthony Hopkins.
Yep.
And this one, Casey's played by Mads Mikkelsen, who's magnificent.
Oh, Mads Mikkelsen. I think, in my own opinion, he might be better than Hopkins.
Well, he's different, that's for sure. But talk about badass. The man never raises his voice once. But every word he utters, he means it. If he tells you he's sitting there slicing up a lovely dinner, and it's usually something made out of some human, either the leg or the heart or the liver or something, and he'll cut it up. And if he looked up and tells you, I'm going to cut out your eyeballs, you're going to believe it, because he means every word. His version of badass is what we need more of, not The Rock.
The Rock, the great thing about, and I know what you're saying, the thing about Dwayne Johnson is he's actually really cool dude. It's like, you're talking about muscles, though. I get your point, the bulky muscles. But the one great thing about him is at least he runs businesses, and he's actually a producer. He's not just he's not the Schwarzenegger action hero from the 80s. He does a lot more.
He's an entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And it's like, the great thing about him, I mean, there's people that have thought of him of trying to be president of the United States, as Dwayne Johnson, of course. And it's like, something? He's loved by so many other people. What if you try? What if you tried? See what you can get. I mean, he might have a chance to win because he is so popular. Both sides, And,
well, like I said, when you're talking about badass men and badass women, I would love a female character that is something like Hannibal. Now, maybe she doesn't have to be necessarily a cannibalistic serial killer, but someone in that her thought processes are similar. But I think people are afraid to write that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's easy to write the badass women who can do, jump kicks and roundhouse and, It's easy to write those characters because it doesn't require them to think. But a woman who can think, but also thinks like a serial killer, but isn't necessarily one, that's kind of frightening, isn't it?
And it's like, there's afraid, and you mean like a female Dexter, for instance?
Yes, but she doesn't have to be a killer.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to take human life, because maybe in that particular vein, she has no interest in doing so.
Yeah.
And maybe she says, I don't kill people because it doesn't interest me.
Right.
Not because it's wrong or what a horrible thing or I'm going to go to jail. No, the response of someone like that would be, I don't kill because it doesn't interest me.
Right.
Okay.
And someone that's calmer like that, it's like, that would be something different. You know what I mean? But you're right. They might be afraid of that, just like the fears of trying to build a stronger male, because every single time you try to build one, and there's quite a bit of them out there, but they're absolutely murdered by the reviewers. Who do you think that the reviewers would murder a kind of character you brought up?
I think they would be the kind of character you love to hate. Okay, there's the kind of characters we love to hate them because they're sneaky or they're conniving or there's the one-upmanship or they're always getting the goat or there's something about that personality that's just loathsome.
Yeah,
but not necessarily want to kill them.
And something, but the perfect way to say, because one of our next topics has to do with Atlanta actors.
Yeah.
To do with Atlanta acting. And it's like, now that, all of these years that we've had where all these productions are in Atlanta, they get the tax breaks, they get all those, the credits, they get all those. We have them more. You get to LA actors, New York actors that come here and they move here but these were people that are already in LA and in New York.
Yep, I know.
We're talking about, we are talking about Atlanta actors that are from Atlanta. And I wanted to be able to say this. Do you think an Atlanta actor would have, I'm going to say hypothetical, the kind of story, like be it Peg Tone. We're just going to use names in this area, in this local area. Be it Peg Tone, be it, let's see, Natalie Holloway. Anyway, I'm just naming names. Do you think they would have any chance, without writing it, to get a character like that on a national scale?
No.
Okay. So
I
tell
don't
me.
think so. Well, let me tell you something. One, because I already know they're not.
Right.
Um, because I also read a lot of Instagram and some Facebook posts from local casting directors.
Right.
And local casting directors, and I believe them. Okay, I can throw some names out there: Kathy Casting, Erica Arvold, and they put. I mentioned them because they have put. Kathy Ranking is her name, by the way, and they put posts out there that say exactly this. They work very, very hard to try to promote the local talent here, and that means anybody from child, teenager, adult, older, white, ethnic, whatever. And because of producers from the West Coast, from your big sets and your big, the conglomerates, all right, if you will, a lot of their scenes get cut. A lot of their credits are not on the opening sequence. They're bumped down to the end credits. As hard as the local casting directors, and as often as these actors go to classes and go to work and upload stuff and 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 the headshots and everything we've all done, they're not getting the exposure, recognition, and credit that they're due.
Yeah.
Because they don't have an LA address.
Yeah.
And that's it. Which is why I'm saying this and I ain't ashamed to say it. I flipped it off a long time ago because it was killing me. It was killing me heart and soul. I was having health problems, financial problems. My family were on the verge of disowning me. Okay. I mean, it came very close. And I decided to just put it aside for a few years. And I worked on other things. I worked on getting myself back into a field which would bring me some money, good money, and it does.
Yeah.
And I'm here. And then and ironically, once I kind of got to that point, then COVID hit. So we were kind of like, nah, nobody's doing anything right now, theater or otherwise,
Yep.
and except on Zoom, like what we're doing. But I tried to do that, and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Now things are kind of, cranking back up. I know a lot of people who are working very, very regularly and getting auditions regularly. But I feel for me, creating my own content and getting something out there is going to bring the talent to me. Not me have to go out and seek it.
Right.
And I like that.
See, one of the biggest issues about that is the fact it feels like we talked about earlier about something, one of our topics about the past to now. We talked about this. It feels like we have an understanding that things have changed. Now there's more cultures, there's more everything. There are more representations, like more than just white male or white female or whatever. There's representations in everything now. We've talked about that. But for all of that we understand, it doesn't look like that even the West Coast or the East Coast casting directors understand. It's like they're still trying to stick to the 1985 model, 1990 model, where, it's like, oh, we got to get them in LA or New York. Meanwhile, there are very few really, there are very few. I mean, look how many can shoot in Georgia. Look how many shoot in New Orleans, in Wilmington.
All the time.
Yeah, Toronto. Look how many of those. But it's like, but they still have this thought process of the 80s. And it's like, I got to wonder what the possibilities of Atlanta, if you could possibly, what if your movie, our movie, we can say ours, what if that movie could change the mindsets, if it would make it somewhere, if it would make some kind?
I'm not even, you know what? I posted something not long ago, just a few days ago on Facebook about a post. Let me see if I can find it and I'll read it.
Sure.
This is what I think about all of this now. And, well, my thought process on this, give me a second. Okay. This quote is from a movie called Paris is Burning.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it struck me, and I had to copy and paste it.
Sure.
This is a character in this movie who says this. I always had hopes of being a big star, but as you get older, you aim a little lower. Everybody wants to make an impression, some mark on the world. Then you think you made a mark on the world if you just get through it. And a few people remember your name. Then you've left a mark. You don't have to bend the whole world. I think it's better to just enjoy it. Pay your dues and just enjoy it. If you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, hooray for you.
Yep. And you know something? I completely agree with that because I went through my own stresses. I went through 12 years off and on, 12 to 15 years off and on.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that.
Yes.
And I absolutely, positively thought the red carpet. Red carpet. I wasn't even working on my. See, I'd work so little on my craft other than the teachers. I had like 9 different teachers. I'd work then. I'd work with a partner, but I wasn't doing theater exercises. I wasn't doing anything extra. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I worked so little on the craft in comparison to. I mean, you think of well, name another Atlanta actor, Bill Pacer. Think of how much he'd work on his craft every morning. You know.
Every day.
Yep. And it's
every day.
And I wasn't doing any of that. And then I took a few years. I had a few years off. I was an Uber driver. I was basically living in hotels and doing all that stuff and barely surviving and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But do you want to know what came out of that? I realized I failed the first time around because I hadn't lived at all, really. But then when you come through near homelessness, when you come through having meeting 60 different countries, people in different countries, and understanding them, then you go to different jobs where you have different lives and you've done everything. Then you have the gray hairs that I do. Then you have the stresses and you have everything. You've now lived and you can now understand other characters. So I understand the idea of working on the craft. And if it comes to the idea of Michael Cole, what he always talked about.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, and you don't necessarily have to have lived the lives of your characters, okay? Right. But what you got to have is some frame of reference in there, something similar that would give you a reaction to something and in a sense of belonging in the moment. You can tell when someone's just like, and they're just kind of there, and the term is phoning it in, okay? Yep. And you can tell when someone's really connected.
Yep.
Connected to what's happening, connected to the other people in the scene.
Yep.
Something that other actor says, and maybe at that moment it doesn't. Okay. And the reality is this: as an actor, we know this. Sometimes you just have to rely on a certain technique to get through a moment, a period of. I'm just not. It's just I'm not there. It's not happening. But if it's something your livelihood, you need to do that. That's where the techniques come in.
Yeah.
But that's when you have what others like, for example, Robert Pralgo, who's always said your bag of tricks. You got to have your bag of tricks because there may be those days when something else is on your mind and you're not connected to the moment and what's happening in the scene and what's happening in the no matter what you do, you can't wrap your head around it, but you've got to rely on, like Felix the cat, your little bag of tricks. And it's rescued me a couple of times.
Well, I'll tell you this. I remember one of my very first roles. I was in a dinner theater play, and I'd had and this is the thing. This is my very first theater play, and no training at all. This is before all my training I'd get in Atlanta. And one of the things that I did not know anything about the bag of tricks. None. So, I mean, my very first 2 or 3 were just dinner theaters thing. I guess I was fine. I remember my lines. Then it got a little better, that sort of deal. But then I had one night where I had a really bad flat tire, and then I had to get on. I had to go on, and it's like I did not know a clue, and all of a sudden I'm sweating. I'm all that kind of stuff like that. I'm just like I'm nervous as all get out. It wasn't in the scene. I wasn't in my moment. Nothing. You don't know any of that when you're not trained.
Right.
And you don't know any of it. And then it was all that. And then luckily I got repped. Luckily I got bailed out by people with actual experience. And it's all that stuff. And it was kind of fun. And then so I learned that stuff later when I was in training. But it's like these are things that you learn. This is why you get this is why you get the like, for instance, you'll get a really famous 50s or 60s actor, and you'll watch them, and then you realize they had cancer and they were near death, and they still put this last moment out there, you know. Or we can say Val Kilmer in this era, you know, even if it's about 3 minute long and everything, he's about to die, but did this, and it's like these actors can get that moment.
Well, they're committed. Okay.
Yeah.
The term that's used in the classes I've taken, Michael Cole, Prolgo, and a few others, the term is committed.
Yeah.
Okay. Committed to doing the work, being in the moment, and the character. The characters want. Alan Alda said it in his article. He says, I don't feel like I've done my job until I get my place where that character, I insist that character get what they want.
Yeah.
Okay. Because every character wants something in a scene.
Yep.
You gotta want something, otherwise, what the hell are you doing there? Okay. Yep. Maybe all you want to do is go to bed, and people are bothering you. I just want to go to bed. Dragging them. I just okay. La 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 la. I just want to go to bed. La 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 la. And here's another interruption, and something is getting in your way. But all you want to do is go to fucking bed.
Yeah.
That may be all you want to do.
Well, before we go into our last topic, I'll bring this up with him. There's a scene that I've watched in MASH where he hadn't been to bed in 72 hours.
Right.
Gone. He's out of it. He doesn't know anything. But then the more he tries to go to sleep, the more his brain is moving 100 billion miles an hour. And then he's doing stupid things. Then he has to go back into the surgery room. Then he has to do something. Then it becomes 96 hours. Then it becomes everything. And then finally he passes out at the end.
Exactly. I know.
And those were the things. It's like, just imagine what kind of commitment to acting you had to take to that.
Now, I want to ask you something before we move on to the last topic.
Sure.
Okay. In terms of writing characters that are badass, would you define Alan Alda's Hawkeye as badass?
In a different way, yes.
Okay. See, it all depends on how you define badass.
Yeah, different way.
Like I said, the Mads Mikkelsen for the more criminal mindset, and then you have your Alan Alda for the more the good guy.
There's an intellectual badass to him. It's like there's an intellectual badass. It's like, remember, you got to remember the idea of badass. Sometimes you're just too tired, too hungry, and you don't care anymore. That's the version of his is.
Right.
But it's like he would rather not be. He'd rather be. He said it himself. He said I'm too frightened to be scared. So the biggest thing about it is he admits what he is, which probably gets him more women than Frank Burns, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, but at the same time, he can, in a certain way, he's frightened, but everybody knows he's going to come through and do something. Right. So it's like, because you kind of have to. It is that moment. It is as my dad would go, or as we have all called it in our family, what he used to do. It's living in the solution. It's like, okay, we can be scared and sit here and be in a ball and die, or we can go, okay, we're a little bit afraid, but what are we going to do?
Okay. See, that's a good acting technique there, and something to think about when you're because the actor, I've also heard it said, and one last point here. I get these like email lists of these like, inspirational people and motivational speakers who do workshops and like acting. One thing that one said that kind of stood out in my mind a little bit: when you're a character, either whether you're auditioning or playing it, always play it as though you are getting what you want.
Yeah. Because
the viewer will root for the person who's getting what you want.
Yeah.
Rather than the whine or in the complaint, or it's like, oh, nothing's happening, blah, 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 or approaching it in that way of, well, I'm not getting what I want, so what do I do? And like, but if you approach it as though you are, even if there's a conflict there, an obstacle, approach it like you are. Live in the solution, as you said. Their audience is going to root for you, whether they're aware they're doing it or not. That subconscious thing.
Sure. But it's like there are so many different. It's like, like for instance, I brought up Mike Hammer, which is another thing I'm actually studying for the film noir deal. For these deals, and it's Stacy Keach. You think about this: the hard-boiled detective who went to the London School of the London School of Drama,
right?
So, and he's from Savannah, Georgia, which is funny, but but the biggest thing about it that you see, he admits himself that he softened up Hammer. Even though Hammer was a tough guy, he was a lot more he was a lot more appealing to women. A lot more, because it wasn't, okay, I'm going to be a badass around men, but I'm going to be soft around women, which that wasn't the case in the 50s. But in the 50s, you take off your hat for a woman, you have a old fashioned deal for the women. You do that kind of stuff, but in the end, it's like by itself they're doing, and Alex and the women would come to him. So it's such a different thing in the 80s.
Right. Because again, even in the 80s, with all the stuff going on with women's lib and all the, women entering the workforce and gaining some ground and getting a little bit more, there was still a lot of mindset from an earlier era, because you're talking about teenage girls and young women coming up in the 80s and people who were already older by the time the 80s were here.
Yeah.
Who came up in the 60s and 50s and all that, okay? Because their minds are still thinking then. It's the younger people coming up, like my generation, us. Yep. We're coming up in the world of feminism, and things were beginning to change. And well, I think we could continue this another time. We have one last topic.
We have one last, and I'll tell you this: I brought up like a Mike Hammer, for instance, like for the thing I brought up as a character. I was thinking of that as a heck of a biopic for a future. What do you think? We're bringing up TV and movie characters. They can be obscure or they can be stars. Awesome.
My God.
Biopic.
So in other words, a bio, like a background story for a fictional TV or film character.
Yep. They can be stars or they can be very obscure.
Anybody on West Wing?
Toby. You want to know what?
Anybody on West Wing?
Yep, but Toby especially, because remember, Toby lost his first 6 before he got the president, his first 6 elections. What if you focused on that? I'm just saying this as a character, as a thing. What if you focused on everything he lost, and then gets Richard Schiff? You could dye his beard, you could get it, whatever, and you show the final one where he gets the president in, and that could be the end of the show.
And of course, that's the kind of film that would only appeal to a fan of West Wing. Okay?
Right? It could be that could be a TV series on Amazon. That could be a TV series on Amazon too.
Possibly, maybe a limited series. I could see it as a limited run series.
Yeah.
But God, so many characters that I have because TV often does such a very good job of revealing a character's story as time goes on. Unlike maybe a film, which you have the 2.5 hours ish or less to get that story out.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have time to tell one character's particular story unless it's already about them.
Right.
Oh gosh.
For instance, I was a Rocky fan. I would love to see Mickey. I'd like to see Mickey. It's like it's like people that watch Rocky understand that he was an old curmudgeon in his 70s by the time he gets to Rocky.
Oh, Dr. House. I would love Dr. House. Give me Hugh Laurie.
We would need, for House, because we saw how he hurt his leg and everything, we would need to see him from the very beginning when he's not limping.
Yes. And when he was a younger man.
Yes.
And there were little stories that he told throughout we knew about the relationship with his parents, that he was very estranged from his dad. They did not have a good relationship. Maybe earlier stories of him as a young adolescent on up to college age.
Yep.
How that relationship developed and how it became the way it did, and how he became the doctor he did. And there was little stories and little snippets along the way as you learned from each episode, because it was like 8 seasons or whatever. But I would love a biopic about House, Dr. Greg House.
Here's a little wild card, Frank Burns.
Oh God.
No, but it could be a comedy. But you remember what they talked about with how he was almost like how his mom treated, how everybody treated, how how he kept failing out of the med school, but he had a determination to make it. But he had a determination the wrong way.
I think people were very unfair to Frank Burns. I think the writers wrote him as too much of a two-dimensional character rather than something with some depth. And even Larry Linville, the actor who played him, one of the reasons why he left after season 5 is he said this character is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because Margaret got married, and she was moved on and wanted Penobscot and went on to another guy because she got tired of him. She said that he said the relationship between Houlihan and him, there's nothing else for him to do. He said he was just tired of playing the fall guy all the time.
Yeah.
And it just they weren't gonna develop any further, and so he left.
Yeah.
But yeah, that he'd be an interesting one too. But you know, out of the ones of my favorite, I'd say anyone from West Wing or definitely House.
Oh yeah, and let's see, and then like I said, Frank Burns. And then I brought up Mickey. I brought maybe Miyagi from Karate Kid. Maybe you can do that because remember they're doing Cobra Kai and it's getting it's huge ratings. So you can do the pre thing of that. So but there are so many shows. But the biggest thing about it is writers are so much better now, and I'm just being truthful. I think movies are like, this is my truth on this. Movies are better than in a technical way because there's a lot of laziness in movies right now, even with all the technology. Movies are almost better then, but TV is better now.
Well, TV is better now because one reason is that people aren't having to pay $20 a show to go sit and watch it for 2 hours one time. They pay a monthly fee for streaming and can see stuff as many times as they want, you know, or pause it and return and come back later. You know, it's there's an advantage and a convenience there. And people are more likely to sit home after a long day at work or on the weekend, you know, unless they go to a movie as an event. Okay. The movie is now an event. Oh God, I remember being a kid and going to the dollar theater. Mm-hmm. It was $1 for the movie, $1 for a box of popcorn, and $1 for a drink. All you spent was $3 and you got this little snack and a fun afternoon at the movies. Yeah. And you know, that's you can't even rent a movie for $3 anymore.
Well, and the thing is, the biggest thing about it is you had so much, like for instance, I said TV is so much better. Now I'll give you an example. Get Me TV, and I'm glad for the older generation that they get those. But there is not a TV show, you know, one of their little movies that pisses me off more than Leave It to Beaver when they had a comeback movie.
The comeback movie?
They had an 83. It pissed me off in the first 2 minutes.
I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, but you go ahead because I saw the whole thing.
I couldn't watch it.
I saw it for 2 minutes and I was done with it because literally they have a part where the beaver's going to get divorced, blah, 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 blah. The wife calls him Beaver. And it's like, why? This is where TV writers now are able to think they're outside of their ass. They're able to think of this a little bit. Wouldn't the wife want to call him Theodore? And then why wouldn't he just...
Or at least Theo.
Theo, yeah. And why wouldn't he go to his house so his mom could be the one calling him Beaver? And, you know, this is what TV writers now would straighten out.
Well, I think what happened at the time was whatever writers were writing that were probably not paid very much.
Yeah.
2, the most they probably ever wrote was commercials.
Yeah.
Okay. And 3, they probably only had the vaguest idea of what the Leave It to Beaver show was even about. Or at least all they knew was the guy's nickname was Beaver.
Yeah.
All right.
I hate that nickname, by the way, but it's like I still love that.
They nicknamed Jerry Mathers that because he had the big buck teeth when he was a kid.
Yeah, I still love the YouTube thing where they'll go, I think you were a little hard on the beaver, weren't you? To the wife. the wife said that to the husband, to Ward.
I find the TV show itself to be difficult to watch. I can't. It's so cornball to me. Well, this character was the one played by Ken Osmond. Ken Osmond.
That would be Ken Osmond would be No, it was Jerry Mathers. Ken Osmond would have been let's see, there was Wally, that was Wally, that was
What was his name? Ken Osmond. What was his character's name?
let's see.
Wait. Ken Osmond. Yeah, he has died recently.
Yep.
Eddie Haskell.
Eddie Haskell, yeah.
God, how did I forget that name?
Yeah, it was Jerry Matt. But no, the reason, see, I was just using that as an example. I can't stand, even after looking at those 2 minutes, this is where TV writers have gotten so much better, because they would iron all those little things out. Where it's like the first 2 minutes of a 1983 movie, you're asking right off the spot, why would the wife agree to call him Beaver? He's like a 7-year-old. Why would she marry him if he insisted to be called Beaver?
Well,
and they would iron that out now.
Well, yeah, exactly. Either call him Teddy, Theodore, Ted, Theo, or at least Honey.
And then Honey, and then what? And then real thing, he's getting divorced. Why don't he go home to the safety of his mom, who would be the one that's still calling Beaver? I mean, there's easy things you could do that they weren't thinking of.
Well, it's either they weren't thinking of, or so what the producers wanted. I don't know, because somebody had to okay the script. All right, that's all there is to that. I mean, and like I said, the ones who wrote it probably wrote nothing more than commercials, and probably weren't paid very much.
Yeah,
and it was so dreadful.
No,
a production.
Yeah,
that even if I were one of the actors on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to this, I would say, look, we all need to get back into our characters. Okay. We need to put ourselves, but of course, Mothers was 10 years old. And, there he was in his 40s or 50s or whatever, however old he was. And Wally, same thing. He was 12 when the show started.
Yeah.
Like 17 or so when it ended. He graduated high school by then. And so did Ken Osmond.
See, here's the thing now. I think kid actors have a better chance now, because kid actors were in all of these shows back in the day, but the writing was so miserable that it's like when you turn into an adult, no one knows if you can actually act and do anything.
Well, that was the problem a lot of kid actors had. Okay. Now, there were few that acted in movies, Jodie Foster among others, okay, who, once they reached a certain age, when either roles were not happening, or they felt they had outgrown it, or they wanted just not to do it anymore for a while, they quit and they went to school, or they just, bless his heart, the one who just died last year, Dean Stockwell, was a very well-known child actor in the 40s and 50s. He reached a certain age. The roles weren't happening. He just said, screw this. And he hit the road. He hit the road, but he did odd type job. He didn't go to school. I mean, he didn't come out with his fancy schmancy degree. He went around and he did work, just good old fashioned work, and supported himself. And then he decided to get back into the theater as a young man. And he got into the theater and he did that horrific thing about the Leopold Loeb murders. And it was made into a movie. And Orson Welles played the lawyer that defended them, Clarence Darrow.
Yeah.
We'll have to see that sometime.
Yep.
I can't remember what that movie was called, but he played one of the brothers who killed this little boy. And they had this, there was a thing going on with those brothers. They were psycho. And it was Leopold and Love. No, they weren't brothers. I think they were lovers. They were for each other. Sure. But they didn't play that up in the movie. But it was definitely explored in the stage play. They killed
that is something that someone like I'm just talking about back in the time with Sanford Meisner and Strasberg and all those their old little playhouse. That's something that their playhouse with Stella Adler, Luther Adler, all of them. That's something that their playhouse would have explored: the gayness, the homosexuality. It would have explored that.
Oh yeah, of course they would have. Absolutely. Yeah. Tennessee Williams, for goodness sake. I mean, you look at the movies of his plays and they don't even go anywhere near mentioning gay or homosexual or any such thing. But the stage plays kind of went there, not in an extreme explicit way, but it was definitely more than implied. Okay. Let me try to find that Dean Stockwell Orson Welles movie. Compulsion. That's what it's called.
Sure.
Compulsion. Um, we may be able to watch it. We may have to rent it on YouTube or something. But yeah, oh God! And that was about the Leopold Loeb, and it was a court case. It was made in 1959. So this is what what I'm saying about Dean Stockwell. The early 50s came along, and he just wasn't. He was too old for child roles, and he just wasn't segueing into roles for teenagers that much. So
Well,
he quit, and
well,
he came
what
back into it when he got to be in his 20s.
Well, think of this though. The thing about this though, that I'm saying the child actors now they got a chance. Heck, you can go back to not Jody Davis. I'm sorry, that's a Chicago Cub. Jodie Foster.
Yes.
You can go to Jodie Foster, and she played the role that she played the 12-year-old hooker in the Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver. Yeah.
Yes, and all those, and then you get everything from Drew Barrymore. And you get all those. It's like the Jerry Mathers thing ended, but it was probably for the necessity because their careers basically stopped once their thing was over. The typecasting was big.
I know.
And it's hard.
Tony Dow had said that many times when, after Beaver ended, nobody even cared about us. And he had said that in interviews a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that was the era. Ron Howard is an exception.
Well,
from Andy Griffith.
Ron Howard also had a dad in Hollywood. He had Rance Howard. He also he was also a really good little actor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jerry Mathers couldn't act, but Ron Howard could act, and you could do things with him.
Yes, and also he was fascinated behind the camera.
Yeah,
he said it from the word go. He wanted to be behind that camera.
Yeah.
And he had opportunities, once he met Happy Days, and did that show, which was based on American Graffiti by George Lucas.
Yep.
And he was a character in that. And so was, I believe Richard Dreyfuss was, American Graffiti. Very famous movie in the early 70s. And then that's what gave him Happy Days.
This is the way we got to end because we have gone through a little over. But you know something? We had a really good show tonight, and I can't wait. I can't wait till we go to learn that we understand to go live and we can get people to see it live. But we're gonna get people watching as we can. I'm very happy. And what are things that we see you with, TJ? Your movies that you're doing right now. Tell them about. You told me a little earlier about the plays and everything. Tell me some ideas that you're going on right now and what you're doing.
Some ideas for screenplays, you mean?
Or no, the stuff that you're finished right now, your script that you finished, the short, everything. Just take a little more about it before we. Just
sure. Oh, it is a film noir thriller. I kind of based it. I got the idea from it, like from the Maltese Falcon. It's an object of interest.
Yeah.
Which has a mystique about it. There's something about it. And I call this screenplay, The Crystal Locket. And I gave it a quality that's made out of like the rarest crystal in the world. And there is something called it starts with a T and I can't remember what it is right now, but it's like, thousands of dollars for the smallest amount,
Yeah.
And I had this concept of this thing was so precious and it was made especially for the wife of a very, very wealthy man, unnamed. You don't see him. It tells a story. The lead character tells the lead female a story about it. And what she has done is kill the owner of this necklace and steal it because her lover, the lead character, asked her to do it. But she has ulterior motives. Yeah. Obviously, these things worth a lot of money. He's going to get some money. They're going to split the money, but her plan is to go off with another lover and leave him stuck in, with a criminal act, that has been committed in the name of this thing. But what he tells her is the story of it, how the lover of the female wife was having an affair with the man who had this beautiful jewel necklace made for her. And what he did was he took it to a voodoo priestess and she cursed it. So every time the woman would wear the necklace, she would remember her infidelity and feel guilt and shame. And it was so bad for her one time that she threw herself off the balcony. And that made the man so sad and so unhappy that he had it permanently engraved into his tombstone. And then it was stolen because it was so valuable, and it had, and it was stolen like, jewels and thieves. And what happened was one of the robbers actually ended up putting it on. And then he started having nightmares. He started having he confessed to his wife that he stole the locket and that he'd been having an affair, whether he really was or not. You find out that, the wife, and this is all told out in the story, but I won't end it. I don't want to put a spoiler out there and end it, but that's the idea behind this one. It's an object that has a curse on it. And the woman who steals it, well, she puts it on one day, and you'll have to just wait and see what happens after that.
Well, that's going to be
only 12 minutes long. It's only a 12-page script, and all of it's just told in a speakeasy in this dark, little, dark, like a club bar / building that's sort of a secret. She goes up, knocks on the door, and then the voice says password, and it starts off like that, kind of like that, the 40s era. And my feature film is about a woman who has struggled with mental health issues.
The Awakening. She
struggles with mental health issues and inherits some money and decides to rent a house, an old house she finds online for rent, dirt cheap, out in the middle of nowhere. And she comes to realize it's haunted, but she also comes to realize that she has had dreams about this particular house ever since she was a very small child. Mm-hmm. And the longer she stays in the house, things happen, some mysterious things that aren't explained, like doors open by themselves. There's the ghost element, and she's been on medications, and she decides to not take them anymore. And then she has conversations on the phone, virtual, with her therapist, who is, in the city in Atlanta. And then she develops a friendship and a sort of a quasi-romantic, not totally romantic, but a little bit of a romantic relationship with a cop who's in the town. And she starts learning things about the town and discovering things about herself. She was adopted. She wants to know what happened to her real mother. She thinks that something has happened, and she's having dreams, and these dreams turn out to be visions, not dreams. So there's more to that, and that story sort of unwinds and it unfolds, told through her dreams and visions, rather than the action in the film. Because this is going to be a very low budget production. So my character is the predominant character in it. So it's in every scene, but there's supporting characters throughout are going to add some very interesting flavor to the story. In fact, some of these supporting characters are more interesting than the lead, which, that's by design, of course.
Yes.
Nobody is a gratuitous character in this. Nobody. Everybody has a very specific role to play.
And it's well done.
I'm very excited about it. 113 pages. So it's going to be it's almost 2 hours long.
Well, it's well done. And this is a way, because when they see this movie, they're going to love it. And with that said, we are a little over, but we are very glad, and we are very glad, and we're going to see how many people like that, and we may be able to go 2 hours one night. Who knows? But we're just getting stuck in right now. TJ, thank you for being on with Yin and Yang tonight. We're going to start getting some titles pretty soon, some banners, get the title thing. We're working on it right now. We're learning about this as we go. So you have a great night, and thank you for another night. A great show.
Awesome. Thank you. And are you able to talk with me on here after you go offline?
Yeah, a few minutes, yes.
Yes, do that, please.
All right. Everybody, you have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.